try to depict the guard as perpetrator. It's a given. The guard did these actions. These actions are morally, maybe even legally reprehensible. Justice was or was not served. But insofar as I'm talking about qualitative research, my question isn't why did you do that, but what are the motivations that led you to do that, right? What led you to perform these particular acts? That's what I'm interested in. If it's the case that I say, well, you know, I was instructed that I have a role in society, and I knew full well that I assumed that role. My role was guard, and I was told by my superiors to do X, and therefore I did X, and I recognized that my responsibilities entailed action X, therefore I did it, right? And my actions are justified insofar as I followed regulations, right? You have to think to yourself, well, I mean, and this is where it gets rather interesting, actually. This is in part sort of what structures Milligram's Obedience to Authority Act, right? The act of doing something that you otherwise wouldn't do, harming a person, saying something derogatory to a person, doing some what society would call reprehensible, morally reprehensible, illegal, immoral act, at the condition of the mandates of a role that I have assumed, the role as contingent on another person's authority. It's a very formal process. I was told to kill, therefore I killed. I was told, this happened in one of my students did research with, as I said before, a child soldier, and it was like, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but I was told to kill, and I recognized that if I didn't kill, I would be killed. I recognized if I didn't kill, my family would be slaughtered. I didn't have a way out, so I killed. And I recognized while I was killing that what I was doing was bad. But what am I to do in that situation? And that's the complexity of it all, right? It's not about us casting judgment. It's about recognizing how the individual got in the position that he or she was in, and then committed the acts that he or she did. Not that they committed the acts, but the conditions that allowed the individual to commit the acts. It doesn't have to be something heinous, all right? Everything that I think is horrible, and I apologize for that, but I mean, these examples are rather clear, which is why I use it, right? The weakness is a failure for mercy, right? Because you do as you are told, right? If someone tells you to do X and you follow X because the system, the judicial system, and it doesn't have to be a real judicial system, but the system of justification says that you ought to do it, then, I mean, you do it, right? If perfect example, imagine that, like, this would be another, you know, it's a grievance, but I can imagine off the top of my head a contemporary account that has nothing to do with something that extreme. Imagine, this is the fact that, you know, students have cell phones in the class, and cell phones can take video. We all know that. Imagine that a teacher is in the front of the class, and the student is videotaping secretly the teacher. And the teacher calls one student up because the student won't behave properly, and has the student sit away from all the other students in the corner by him or herself for the rest of the period. Right? And this is something that the teacher has done for as long as there has been time. This is from the beginning. Listen, you're not going to behave in my class. You're going to act up. I'm going to isolate you from the other students. This is in the corner. It's not a dunce cap. It's not a dunce corner. You just another table in the corner. And this is being filmed by a student unbeknownst to the teacher. And then the student goes home and does some commentary on YouTube and uploads the video. Watch the teacher as the teacher, watch the teacher as the teacher humiliates this other student. Watch how mean the teacher is. Well, the whole point is that our understanding of the event, of the phenomena, is going to be filtered by this second account narration. And we're immediately going to think that the act that the teacher performed was an unjust act, right? That there was a failure to be just in this action, right? And the whole point might be, we might say, well, the teacher wasn't merciful, or the teacher wasn't fair, or the teacher wasn't nice, right? The whole point of qualitative methods research is to get the story of the teacher, hi, teacher, you're the one that I saw on YouTube with 1,000,000 hits for being the mean teacher. Can you tell me your side of the story? What happened? What led to that action? Why did you think this was an appropriate form of action? Well, what you didn't see on the video was the dude was spitting on other students and blah, 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 what have you. Right? So the whole point is, it's not as easy as it appears. It's not as simple as it appears. The stories are always going to be, always, even the most trite story is always going to be a lot deeper if you dig past sort of surface level assumptions, right? But in a justice-based model, the system says do X, and the participant does or does not do X. The participant acted in a way that conformed just dogmatically to the rules, and there is a sense in which there could be, at least potentially, a failure to show kindness or mercy as one of the weaknesses. Just an example, not to be exhaustive. An over-reliance on impersonal institutions. I mean, obviously, right? The system says, the state says, do X. The church says, do X. My family says, do X. You know, as a family member, I'm not allowed, another perfect example, 21st century, great research, sort of justice-based model, more than cure-based model. It would be very interesting to see a qualitative research study in teens, late teens, that decided to date outside of their race or outside of their gender, not outside of their gender, that decided to date within their gender, right? Homosexual and lesbian teens, or teens in interracial relationships that did so, recognizing that they were sort of transgressing the family rules. You know, we're a black family. My daughter better bring home a little black kid, right? We're a white family, we're an Italian family, we're a Jewish family, we're a Jamaican family, we're a Haitian family, we're a Sicilian family, whatever, and you better date inside of our ethnic group, inside of our race, inside of our whatever, right? If you don't, then you transgress. You can see that this would be phenomenal research, right? What are the lived experiences of late teens and their qualitative stories, knowing that they were transgressing this sort of codified, rule-enforced, albeit tacitly implicit, transgression, right? There's a rule in the family. The matriarch, the patriarch says, listen, in our family, it's all blacks, right? I don't want my children dating outside of my race. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not saying that for myself, or even probably more grievously, though I think more people would agree with this point, I don't want my child dating someone within their gender, right? I want you dating someone outside of your gender, right? And the tensions that arise in that. Why? Because there's already a pre-existing formal system that is said to regulate the conduct of those who subscribe to that system, right? I'll say it again, right? There's already a pre-existing system that regulates the conduct of those who subscribe to that system. If you are a Campbell, then you ought to function in this particular way. If you're not functioning in that way, then you're not part of it. And you see this all the time. People get rejected from their families, from their blood, from their kin, because you dated outside of your race, because you dated within your gender, because there was an infraction based on some pre-existing rules. So it doesn't have to be something as serious as sort of torture and such. All that's the similarity between the two is that there was a system in place, that there could be misinterpretations on the rules of the system, or the system can be very, very clear, but there is a sense in which the tensions arise because there was a failure of the participant to recognize sort of their action as transgression. And the question obviously becomes, was it really an act of transgression? Was it not? Yes, it actually was an act of transgression because the system didn't tell you to torture people, right? No, it really wasn't an act of transgression because the system is wrong in telling you that you can't date outside of your race, what have you. All right, and then obviously the last is, just too many rules, right? The system is too regimented, it's too dogmatic. There isn't flexibility in the system. In some cases, that's a good thing, right? And I would say this, people will argue with me, and I'm open for the debate. I think in a political system, it really shouldn't be room for flexibility. I believe in a very, I don't want to say autocratic, but a very sort of rule-regimented, hierarchical structure for sort of academia.